Obviously, if you're paying attention to anything, the new war is happening right now. The old war is back about 4 pages in. The Ukraine war, oh, you didn't know that's still going on? Oh, yeah, because we have a new war in front of us. And I go, what's going on? I go, this is a waking up time. Now, what's interesting is there's always a tendency and has been a tendency for civilization to take sides, one side against the other side, who the winner, the loser. I love this one. There's a quote that goes, war does not determine who's right. War determines who's left. I need to bring up something that's really critical about the evolution and why I don't support either side of the war. Let's put it this way. Alex and I are supporting humanity, not governments and not war machines, with people. And if you see the disaster in the Middle East, it's really coming home to people versus people. It's no longer soldier versus soldier. It's like everybody in the way is now part of this problem. I was giving this lecture in Tel Aviv at the University of Tel Aviv in Israel. And it was a big theater, maybe it held about 12 to 1,300 people for the show. But we had bussed in from the West Bank over 300 Palestinians that had never even been in Israel were bussed in to this place at the university where we were holding this conference. And I had just described to this group of people who were separated like oil and water, Palestinians over here, Israelis over here, not talking to each other, okay? They're in a different world zone. And I just talked to them about the nature of things that we've talked about on this membership call and in the books and all that, and that is uh, the fact about programming, that the first 7 years of a child's life is a programming period, and the rest of the child's life, 95% of it comes from the program. So I'm giving them this technical data, and they're all going, yeah, we got it. Okay, the programming first 7 years, and then 95% of the life, blah, blah, blah. And then I put this slide up. And here I am in Israel, and I got the Israelis, the Palestinians, and I say, the problem. And then when I push the advance, these two pictures show up. And I said, look, you're programming these young boys on the Israeli side to play with weapons and machine guns and all that. On the right-hand side, you're programming young boys in the Arab-Palestinian world, putting them in military uniforms and carrying guns. I say, what are you programming? You're programming hatred. I said, do they even know each other? Do the kids on the left side of the screen know the kids on the right side? No. Did they ever meet each other? No. Do they hate each other? Yes. Why? Programming did this. And I go, how long has this been going on? It's been going on for generations. And as we talk about in the biology of belief and the nature of epigenetics, genes don't control you. It's your programming that controls your genes and your behavior. And so the instant part about this that was so like, I could feel it. The moment I showed these two pictures, this giant auditorium, you could hear a pin drop. It was dead silence. I go, why? It's in front of their eyes. It was in front of their eyes. Look what you're doing. Look what you're creating. You're manifesting hatred among kids that don't even know each other. But they'll always have that program because 95% of life is going to come from that program. And as I said, it was dead quiet because all of a sudden it was visually in their face. What are we doing? We're programming. We're programming separation and violence. I put up the next slide. The solution. Arab Israeli boys walking arm in arm down. Arab Israeli girls holding each other in arms. I say, what does it represent? It represents that when kids play together, they're not going to kill each other. And this is the biggest issue. And it's really interesting because we have two dear friends in Jaffa in Israel, Ehab and Ora. Ehab is Palestinian, Ora Israeli. I go, so what? I said, They were both walking across the Sinai Desert toward each other. They didn't know each other. They were just on whatever mission or thing that they were working on, but they're both walking across the desert toward each other. And they get about 10 feet apart. And like in the Godfather movie, they talk about they were hit by the thunderbolt. I said, what? They saw each other, felt each other, experienced each other. They stopped and they took each other in. And guess what? 3 days later, they got married. I go, why? It was designed and divine, and that's what they did. And so they're married, Palestinian, Israeli, etc. Now Ehab went home and told his father he married an Israeli girl. His father truly took a knife, chased him around the house. He was going to kill him. His son married an Israeli. It's a violation of the history of all this stuff. Meanwhile, Ora goes back to her family and says she married a Palestinian. They disowned her on the spot. Don't come home, don't come back, you're not welcome here anymore. And they're both now outcasts living together. But love is what held them together. Love was the whole thing that put it together. But now comes the interesting part. They have a son, and the son is now getting ready to go to school, like nursery school, kindergarten. And now the parents have to make a decision. Where are we going to send our kid to school? So they went and looked at the Hebrew school in Israel, and they go, nah, that's not good messages. Don't want to send them there. Then they went to the Palestinian school, and they go, oh, no, can't send them there. Bad messages. The only other alternatives, they went to the Christian school, and they both went, oh, no, bad message. And they realized they couldn't send their kids to these schools. It would be bad programming. They created their own nursery school and kindergarten. It's called the Garden of Abraham. The reason for that title is Abraham is a prophet for both the Muslims and the Jews. So Garden of Abraham is like, oh, a fertile ground for Muslims and Jews coming together with the same prophet. So these kids get together, they're kindergarten age, nursery school age. Guess what? They start playing together. They start learning each other's languages. They start learning each other's cultures. They're working and living and playing together, working, playing, being kids. The teachers are Palestinian, teachers are Israeli, and they all work together in teaching. The result is these kids grow up with deepest loving partner relationships with the other kids. There was no separation of Palestinian and Israeli, had nothing to do with it right there. And the point was so profound is that they would never, ever fight each other. I've seen some mayors from some other bigger cities in Israel come and check out the school because they realized, God, we got to put these schools in our area. Because not just the kids came together, but of course the parents who send the kids to the same school, they come together. And it was a healing that was beyond anything. And it's time for us to recognize that this is where we have to start fixing the problem. If we program kids to be violent, we program them to hate each other, then we're programming an inevitable violent world leading to war, which we're experiencing right now. So there's an interesting understanding of this. And maybe this might be familiar in a second. I go, a prism refracts light. And I said, what does that mean? Well, you put in white light on one side, and when it comes out the other side, it's split into the spectrum of the colors that make that white light. Okay. Now, here's an interesting story. All the different religious groups are looking for the white light to come back to the planet. Well, in the history, the white light was different people, Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha, and they're looking for this white light to come back. And the point is, no, this evolution, when we wake up to our spirituality, recognize each of us is a piece of that white light. Each of us has our own unique vibrational frequency. Each of us is like a different color in the spectrum right here. I go, so what's the point? I say, well, what if we go to take the color, the spectrum, and push it back into the prism, and it comes out, guess what? White light. So you put white light in, goes to the spectrum, put the spectrum in, it goes back to white light. So I say, guess what? We're the white light. We're the ones we're looking for. I go, what does that mean? I say, when everybody recognizes they're all part of the spectrum, everyone's a part of the spectrum, we can then put that spectrum of people back through the prism and it comes out white light on the other side. I say, yeah, but what? If we take one frequency out, let's just say we take the Palestinian frequency out of our rainbow, just that one frequency. And I say, take the remaining colors and push them back in through that prism. Do we get white light? And the answer is no, you don't get white light. There's a conclusion. And here's the conclusion. We're facing an evolution. We've been in a state of separation for 2,000 years here. But the evolution of humanity requires humanity, which is every human as a cell in the body of that humanity. If we start pushing cells out of the community, we're losing frequencies of light. And those cells are necessary to come back into the community because it's all of the frequencies that create the white light. We are what we're looking for. We're looking for us. I go, and how's war helping it? I go, it's not helping us. War is the separation of the frequencies again. So the point about it is we're in a world right now where the programming is actually causing a separation. The chaos is part of this. The evolution's still going on, folks. This is just part of the evolution. But it's real hard for us to look at, hey, the Ukraine war is now a few pages back into the news. The new war is up on the front, and atrocities on both sides. And I go, is there one side better than the other side? No, they're both contributing to this problem. And the idea is what? Get the governments the hell out of the way. Get the programs the hell out of the way. And I say, then what? And then we'll be like the kids in the Garden of Abraham. The kids that learn to love each other, play with each other, never even be violent against each other. And I go, this is a lesson and a message for the entire world at this time. And this is why I really wanted to say it, because how many different people asked me to make a comment, in a sense, a public comment on supporting one side, supporting the other side. I say, I can't do that. I don't support either side. I support the people. And the simple point is this. Yeah, the Hamas attack is like a real, like, oh my God. And I go, yeah, but you didn't understand something. The people in Palestine live on a narrow little strip of land with water on one side, and shortly, not very big distance, is Israel on the other side. They're squeezed between the ocean and Israel. And what has happened is Israeli politics, especially the new leader Netanyahu, was pushing the colonization of Israel colonies into the Gaza Strip, causing what? The upheaval of the people that live there, squeezing them more. And I go, simple understanding. Israeli arch conservative militaristic concept of pushing the Palestinians against the ocean and squeezing them is pushing them in the corner. They have no life. They've been prisoners in their own country. They can't even get across the wall without going through, just like criminals going every day through an inspection place to have your life. You have to go through, like, the warden, go through here if you want to go to Israel and get your job. And the reality is they got pushed into the corner. Did they jump? Yeah, they jumped. With nothing left to lose. They got nothing left to lose. There's nothing there. And it's both government and politics, and humans are caught in the middle of all this. So where's Bruce's point of view? Is like, it's the damn programming, folks. It's the program that has separated us, and it's the program that has to change to allow us to evolve into a very sustainable future. We cannot go into the future in armed camps. Never going to happen. Are we going to make it? As I mentioned many times, NASA scientists say 20 years, we're facing irreversible collapse of our civilization. I go, so we got 20 years to straighten out the problems. That's why all the problems are coming to the surface. The Me Too generation, women being rated as second-class citizens, Black Lives Matter, race, again, separating people, okay? Religious confrontation, like now we're doing that in Israel, or even gender confrontation. I go, all of this is percolating. I go, why? It has to come to the surface to be resolved so we can move to a sustainable future. I'm looking at it. Does it make me happy? Absolutely not. Can I do anything about it? No, personally I can't, but then I also look at it this way. It's working out the way it's supposed to. We are facing chaos, and the chaos is precipitated by the fact that we are not living in harmony with each other, or especially not living in harmony with nature. And that what you're seeing is an evolutionary step. It's a war. It's barbaric. This is an evolutionary upheaval. I take no sides because there is no sides to humanity, because humanity is a unity. There is no division. And I'm looking forward because there's an opportunity. The white light will be back on this planet, hopefully before that 20-year period of grace that NASA says nature is giving us runs out. So look at today's world and recognize this is a lesson that we're supposed to be learning at this time, but it has no sides.
Before we had this conversation, we were reminiscing a little bit about one of the first times that we got together. This was back in 2004. And the story of this is this concept of illusion of separation. And which side are you on? I remember one of the first things you asked me at that time. This is when the George Bush, John Kerry election was happening. And he said, "Hey, Alex, but wait, whose side are you on, Bush or Kerry?" And it's funny because that's historically been the case of being in, like, what I like to call the game of monkey in the middle. Which
Yeah.
which person are you running to catch the ball this time? Oftentimes in that game, you never really do get the ball. And that whole illusion of separation, I've been told, is even a better way to describe it. It's the delusion of separation disorder. And this particular disorder is almost like what every single disorder comes from, is this separation. And we're always kind of running to get the ball and never actually getting it. What ends up happening is we get exhausted and then we end up falling on our face. So that's kind of where we're at now. So I really appreciate you recognizing that it's not about which side, it's not about which person are you running to get the ball from at this point. You always say, Uncle Bruce, you got to stop playing that game. You got to stop playing that program and create a new program. And one of the other interesting things too is there's a very powerful symbol that you see in school a lot, but it's also a spiritual symbol. It's called the Venn diagram. When you have two circles, and you always do these in compare and contrast essays, where you take the two circles, you put them together, and there's a third perspective of similarities that emerges when you put the two together. Now, this is the real focus of our attention, that you don't get on the news, because the news makes money off of this whole monkey in the middle scenario. The third hidden perspective, as you so beautifully illustrated, Uncle Bruce, is the side of humanity. It's the side that all of us come together and share. What do we share as a common goal? And as you said, Uncle Bruce, we all share the same source. So thank you for bringing that message of unity. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that. It's very hard sometimes, because war is horrible. And war is hell, as they say. And right now we have to realize that we can change that program. We don't have to create a hell on earth. We can create heaven on earth if we start from within, recognize that everyone shares in this unity. So
Yeah,
thank you so much,
let me
Uncle.
just add something to that, a very positive side, because Dora Reed, who has just written, said Israel's waking up. And the fact is, yes, because they have to wake up. And this is, you get slapped in the face, so you either slap the other person back or wake up and go, what happened here? And Israel, I think 4 out of 5 Israelis are against the government that was pushing the incursion of colonies into the Gaza area and displacing them. That even they're waking up and going, yeah, we just got brutally attacked, but guess what? Maybe we should recognize that we're not innocent victims in this situation, that we are participants in something. And to me, and it's a horrible situation, but it had to be pushed to the worst situation because nobody did anything up until this right moment. And that's why I'm really honored to see, especially a lot of American. We talked to Alex, and I mentioned this before. There's a difference between Judaism, a religion, and Zionism, a mission. Zionism is, well, United States practices the concept of Zionism. When we were founded about in the 1820s and 30s, it was called Manifest Destiny. It said, these Europeans can now take over the entire North American continent by what? Pushing all the indigenous people out of the way, taking their land. I go, oh, we were playing that role. We were playing the Israeli role. And the Native Americans were playing the Palestinian role. And then when they fight us, then all of a sudden everybody came back and tried, kill all the Indians. I go, they were just trying to live. And I go, same story, Manifest Destiny, Zionism. That's Israeli Manifest Destiny. And the fact is, that is one of the most destructive philosophies because it requires eliminating a population so you can have your control over the world. And I think, and I was very hopeful because I see a lot of rabbis in the United States speaking up and not taking sides, saying, look, both sides are wrong. And until that resolution, the war goes on. When is the moment of, we are both wrong, let's change it. Let's go to the Garden of Abraham and hang out.
Yep. And that's the other thing too, is there's a big question when it comes to activism. And the question of activism is, what can I do? What can I do to fix this problem? And I remember Bharat Mitra from Organic India. I remember seeing what he said one time, which was very stuck with me a lot. When he was asked that question, what can we do to make the world a better place? And he just sat there for a second and said, nothing. Don't do anything. Maybe doing stuff is what got us here. Maybe we have to say enough is enough and recognize the opposite of doing, which is being. Who are we? If we don't know who we are and where we come from, then what we do becomes second nature of a program that we didn't even put in there ourselves. So at this point right now, if we just learn to be and recognize that this is really the answers lie within, it makes a huge difference. And the final caveat to that statement, which I want to bring on some guest panelists, we've got some great hands raised for your patience, is that if there is something that we can do, oftentimes people will say in the country, you'll hear the pundits and the politicians and all the advocates say, like, okay, well, we have to do something. Let's give one side more weapons so they can fight. We're going to give them unwavering support to fight. I think that, in the heart, it's coming from the right place. They want to do something like an activist would. However, they're not recognizing the third hidden part of that Venn diagram coming together. It's like, okay, if we're going to be giving something, instead of giving weapons, what if we were giving humanitarian aid? There's a concept to all the people that are suffering and getting hurt, because you know what? In a battlefield, usually medics are not targeted by either side because they are the ones that get to cross boundary lines and cross the line of war and help the people that are suffering. And it's always it's a war crime, actually, to target medics. So it's interesting that if we were to focus on health, healing, humanity, how suddenly you are not participating in the war anymore. So that if you wanted to do something, help the people that are suffering. Don't continue and perpetuate the suffering. All right, Uncle Bruce. Whoa, how did you?
Oh my God.
Wow, that is some cool fireworks. We got a magical interface, don't we?